Hey everyone, thank you all for joining. Welcome to In Rhythm Lightning Talks. I'm Parag Katkar, your host for tonight. I'm the head of consulting practices at In Rhythm. In the upcoming weeks, we have a lot of exciting lightning talks lined up for you. In Rhythm Lightning Talks are hosted every Thursday at 5:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Each week, one of our practice area consultants speak on the latest technology trends in the industry, which will help you keep learning and growing in your career. And this week, Sergey Martynenko, who is a senior software engineer with us, is giving us an overview of the new features in Spring Framework's 6.0 release, which is based on Java 17. This is a major release, and I'm super excited to see what all feature it offers. So let's get it started, Sergey.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Sergey Martynenko, and I am senior software engineer. I've been working on Mastercard project, service application, secure application services. So today I'm gonna talk about the new release, upcoming release of Spring Boot. I know that not everyone familiar with this framework, but I think that everybody who develop applications in Java should know it in some level because it's quite huge. Actually, it's not so important to know details of this Spring framework because I think I want to make a disclaimer first because the release I'm gonna I'm gonna observe today is scheduled for July 2022, and right now the snapshot version is available. Spring Boot is scheduled for October 2022, so it's some time ahead, and I think there is no some change. Some details can be changed in the final release, and right now it's too early to speak about any practical instructions and etc. But the main goal of my presentation is to observe the main changes, trends, and the mainstream of the future development and how Spring Framework reflects on that. So I'm going to talk about a new version of Java 17, and I'm going to observe Spring Native model that should be a core part of the new release, and that's pretty much huge change in the new framework. Basically, it's not a purpose of this presentation to describe Spring Native in details, but I want to uh, spend some dedicate some slides to describe what is it, what is this, and how it works. Because well, and uh, and also I'm going to speak about Spring observability, some changes and pruning and duplications. And I'm going to start with the Java 17 and Jakarta version 9, because first of all, Spring Framework requires Java 17, and in this case, that means that if you want to migrate to Spring 6, you should migrate to Java 17. And I made so I did a small research, and right now I've checked the most popular and widely used models in each Java project, like Lambak, CJLib, that is used for reflection and creating proxy classes, Jackson to convert JSON in NGUnit testing environment, how they are support the current Java 17 version. And Lombok should be updated to the last version that was released October 6th. CJLib doesn't provide any information on the official site, but I found that the ASM library is used under the hood of this framework, should be updated to 9.1 version. So that was released February 17th. So you should check your dependencies in your project if you use reflection with CJLib, because Jackson recommend their last version that consists fixes for Jakarta migration. That's going to be my next slide. And JUnit, they don't provide any information, but I found a ticket, Jira ticket, that says that with the Java 17th, you're not able to use set environment variable annotation, so you're not able to set up environment variable in your test cases, unit test cases, and so the idea here that's for now migrate to Java 17. It's not a seamless process. It should take some efforts, and probably it should be prepared ahead. So next, Jakarta E version 9 repackages Java X to Jakarta namespace like Jakarta servlet and etc. And that requires some efforts to fix the existing code in your existing projects. So if you even don't want to use any new features of the new version in new Java features, you should update your code. Core framework requires to update. Well, basically, it should be a simple find and replace search, but you should update inject annotation, post construct, pre-deploy annotations to Jakarta namespace, data access and transactions in Hibernate. Hibernate should be updated to Jakarta persistence as well, and web servers like Tomcat, Jetty, Undertow should be updated to their high versions. So also it's not the idea of those two slides to say that it's not a seamless process. And if you plan it, it should be planned ahead. So that's like Tomcat, Jetty, and etc. It requires background testing. It requires a lot of works. That's for now. But the Java 17 is announced as a long-term support version, LTS version. So I think that this is a milestone that we should get over that. And next, well, I want to speak about Spring Native. That's probably the biggest part of the future release, and that introduces a new ability, a new Graal VM machine that based on Java virtual machine, but it's kind of a high performance version of JVM. This project was developed and introduced by Oracle. Right now it's open source project. It's available in the community version. The motive of using Graal VM is that it's defined as a high performance framework that can solve a problem with startup time and improve your performance. I checked several presentations prepared by Oracle team, and the main idea of all of that is that the using Graal VM instead of JVM increase the performance of Java application up to 30%. So, and here another one thing is that Spring Native that supports these GraalVM was announced less than a year ago as experimental model, and right now it's going to be included in core Spring framework. So that's a really a rapidly growing project, and that's going to be a mainstream in future. Well, everything tells about that. And that's why I'm going to say a couple words about what is this and how Spring Native supported now and what changes should be in future framework. So as I said, uh, Spring Native allows you to compile Java code to binary files for GraalVM. GraalVM is based on JIT compile, just-in-time compile, and that optimized for increasing performance and etc. And it also allows you to create not just Java binary files that can be run with GVM and GraalVM, basically for GraalVM, but also it allows you to create a native image of your application. That means it's a executable file that can be executed without Java virtual machine, and by using AOT utility that's ahead of time compiler that can be used. Also, I'm not going to speak about that, but this GraalVM supports multiple languages like JavaScript, Python, Ruby, and etc. So you can recompile and run applications with the GraalVM virtual machine that was written in another languages. That's beyond my presentation, so it's just for your information. Maybe any questions? If anybody has some questions, please interrupt me. Okay, so returning to Spring Native, this, as I said, this module supports compiling your Java code and deploying for GraalVM, and also it allows you to compile your Java code as a standalone executable file, and you can run it without Java virtual machine. AOT ahead of time compiler creates a snapshot that includes all dependencies of your project, all classes, and etc. And based on that, it creates an executable file. So there is some limitations of that and some benefits. So according to benefits, it's easy. It's just high performance, optimized static project structure, and reducing startup time. That is important for cloud environments when we run our applications. Also, you and Spring Native, I'm going to show you in the next slide how can you rebuild your project without any changes to the executable file, executable image, to run that on different environments. And also Spring Native supports on the fly transformation, your JVM Spring jar file to native image, native executable image. And also I should say about a couple of limitations. Well, because the performance reached by creating a static project structure, there is some limitations of using dynamic class loading, reflections, and proxy classes. And also anonymous classes. If you are going to use Java lambdas, create proxy class, and use reflections, you should define that classes in configuration files. So if each class that is used by your application should be defined, enumerated in a configuration property file that's required because ahead of time compilator should check the particular structure of your project and that structure and create a graph of using dependencies so you are not able to change it right now runtime. You are not able to use finalizers. I don't know if anyone uses these finalizers, but it's used by garbage collection. I'm not sure, but the logic of garbage collection is a bit different for GraalVM, and here should not the explicitly defined finalizers will not work. And unsafe memory access is also restricted. GVM debugging and monitoring tools for GraalVM project are not working. GraalVM provides its own tools for debugging and monitoring. You can add them to your IntelliJ Studio to use. That's pretty much simple. And next slide shows how you can quickly add this functionality to your current project. For first of all, you should add the dependency to Spring Native module. You should define the Spring LET plugin for that, and there is two different ways how you can create a native image of your existing project in Spring Boot. Firstly, you can use Spring Native and create the image on your environment, on your machine, and that's a simple way. You just define that's how it's going to be generated. And second way, you can create a Docker image that includes this native image of your program. For that, you can use build packs, and that's what I'm going to show you right now. So you should define the dependency for Spring Native, and you should set up a Spring LET plugin to create a native image. And the third step, you should add a Packeta build pack that allows you to create a Docker image. Spring Boot framework provide right now several build packs that allows you to generate Docker images of your application without defining Docker files and properties in Docker files. So that's some kind of predefined images. And here in that purpose, so you just can perform Spring Boot command, build image should be generated, and you can run it by Docker run command for that. Maybe any questions? Okay. Well, as I said, these ability to use GraalVM should be included into the next. Right now, available Spring Native 0.11 version, which is marked as experimental. and it should be included in the core as a core functionality to the next version of Spring. That's a really rapid growth of this project, because for less than a year it became from the experimental module to a part of core functionality of Spring, and the community of this Graal VM project is growing very fast. So I think it's a kind of new trend, new mainstream, and it's, we will use it in near future, I think. So, and for that, Spring Framework includes ahead of time plugin into the core, and you don't need to set up it in Maven file explicitly. And they also want to add it in Spring Boot 3.0 as a set of new starters that should support just-in-time compilation and ahead-of-time compilation. So they plan to very wide support of this new feature, and I think it should be very excited. Well, and next basic changes that we're going to do is they want to consolidate metrics and tracing support in their new Spring Observability part. So basically, they want to include support of wavefront and open telemetry frameworks as a part of core functionality. They want to support Jagger and Zepkin tracers. Micrometer should be available as a entry point of actuator right now, and that's another one big feature that shows that they plan to support distributed backend applications, and they plan to add a lot of DevOps tools into core framework, and it should be a part of the main functionality. And talking about some deprecations, they're going to drop a couple features that's decided as outdated features, but and sometimes we use them, so it should be prepared for that. So first of all, they should cancel support of setters after wiring by name and type. So if you use framework, Spring framework in your work, you should know that Spring support constructor, setters, and field after wiring. So encapsulation. So they announced that the annotation after wiring should be restricted for setters, for setter methods, starting from version 6. Also, they want to drop factory bean support factory bean. So I think it's not a widely used feature, but there is ability to create beans in Spring by by using factory bean, by implementing factory bean interface. That was supported from the first version of Spring, and right now they want to stop supporting that. Also, there's no some precise information, but they announced that some web-related options should be dropped. I didn't honestly, I didn't find some confirmation of that, and I didn't find any precise information what exactly they plan to drop. And first part about integrations should be eliminated, like EGB, JAX, WS was set up as outdated, and they are not going to be supported in the future release. So, and conclusions, maybe there's any questions. So, okay, before that, I want to say that the new features and the new trend of Spring Framework tells us that the main features going to be supported is cloud and distributed backend applications. So when I was preparing for this presentation, and I working with Spring Native, the first use case that can be solved by Spring Native is cloud start issue, the AWS Lambdas. So maybe you know that if you, during the first request of AWS Lambdas, it takes time to run the application, and if the AWS was written in Java using Spring Framework, it can take several seconds to pick up the application at the first request, and Spring Native should solve that problem if you compile your application as a executable image. It's running into memory as a batch, so it reduces a startup time and should solve that problem. And Spring Observation that are going to gather as many different tools, how you can trace your applications, set up different metrics, provide reports for that can be accessible through Actuator, and endpoint shows that they're going to support a lot of new features for DevOps and for distributed applications. Also, Java 17 should be the new baseline, and probably that should force a lot of people to migrate to the latest version, because I wrote statistics that more than 70% of all Java projects use Java 8 for now. So people don't hurry up to move to the next versions. Probably that should be a good bounce to start using new version, but right now it should not be a seamless process. Okay. Any questions? Anything?